on YouTube.
Black Coffee to. Let me show you here. You found it yet? You go to your.
Yeah.
You see it?
Mm-hmm.
A thumb. It's my thumb. You're going to take your volume out.
Okay. Okay, this is Facebook. Where's Facebook? Okay, this is Facebook. Where's Facebook? Come over a little bit.
Okay. You help Dr. Murphy share on his as well.
Yes, you. And I know it's going to rain as soon as we get going. Where's your we need a producer. I'll tell you it's our producer.
I know everything.
She got us a whole channel.
Now I'm going to share this to my news feed. Yes. I need you to say, just start introducing. Everybody introduce us.
Hello, family. Hello, how are you? I want to welcome you to the Black Coffee Wake Up Hour. My name is Ro Davis. I am one of your hosts. To my right, we have the beautiful.
I'm Dr. Shantae.
Absolutely. And to my left, we have another doctor.
Dr. Laverne Murphy, how y'all doing out there? Good to be with you today.
Absolutely. So you know that I'm in between two doctors, so I can't ever be sick, right? I can't ever be sick in the mind, and I can't ever be sick in the body. And we're here to heal your mind and have it translate into our collective body. So today, as always, we ask that you share this video, share this postation. And so without further ado, we always like to start our community. Dr. Shantae, take it away.
All right, well, we're going to do announcements first before we actually get into the news. We certainly want to send our prayers and condolences to Laverne Murphy. Has more insight on him, so we want to just give a special tribute out for him, just a few minutes, and not acknowledge.
Well, we certainly lost a giant in our community. His background of activism dates back decades to education, particularly to our children living under significant disadvantage. He challenged the larger educational bureaucracy to be far more responsive to the needs of Chicago, but specifically, he targeted the inequities confronting the learning. And so I was saddened to hear just today that he was being talking about another Phillip Jackson, because Phillip Jackson and I go back many, many years to the city where the problem of educational deficits, the community has truly lost a soldier in the battle. It's very sad to hear that.
Absolutely, I'm in agreement. I have been fortunate to, be a part of the Black Star Project, where he challenged Black men as fathers and to be more responsive in their for the many years that you put in our community, on the battlefield, working to elevate the status of fathers in homes and for our children. Thank you.
Okay. Onward, we want to say a congratulations, and we won't reveal our Bop tenants for graduating out of the center. I heard from 79th Street. I'm not going to say where. I'm going to allow her to give her own. Now see our family leave, but we're proud because they have a bigger role to play in our
6 businesses here at the Bop Business Center that literally started here, that have matriculated or graduated in the coming days. So definitely sad to see them go, but that is the center, and let us help you grow your idea so that you can be the next entity in one of our vacant storefronts.
This is the holiday season, so we have Thanksgiving coming up, and by the way, we're on business with that. So we're gonna label that by Black Friday. From here on, Black Friday dates back to slavery, where we will be on the opposite. We'll go into that probably in Black History Month, but Black people in particular should just understand its roots and what that means. So when you're running out to those stores and you're by Black Friday, so we're gonna take that just like we took the term nigger.
Right.
That's it.
Well, I think a better C word, and you used it, is we need to develop a consciousness about where that term comes from.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I would actually like to hear about Black Friday. Do we have a...
We don't go into that in today's, but
Okay.
we'll put it on the notepad.
Put it on the notepad. Put it on the
We can deal with
agenda.
that.
Yeah, I never knew
I
that.
think Black History Month would be a good time to do it. Not that we have to
Wait,
until then.
absolutely.
We can do it anytime.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I want to say, just a little different, is that I'm not sad at all to see the people who the purpose of having a shared office space, because small business temporarily stopped along the way.
Right.
And what is really speaking to our success is, and now moved on to the next stop.
Yes.
And that is very important, because they all.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
It's just because the relationships and the bonds that you form here, and seeing them come in every day, and this particular tenant, just has a smile that lights up.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss it so much.
It's just, but
We need to make a plaque. So each of our graduates, we go
No,
to
that's
in a new store and put him. Starting at the Bop Center.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, that goes on with our wall of honor. We actually have a wall of honor that is where people who started, that may not necessarily be hands-on within the center anymore, but they started here, but we're certainly moving forward. But we don't want people, because I can understand, it's a sense of ownership, and I can't tell you how many people that I run into that I have with. Today, I'll run into someone like, I remember when it first started. I was there, and or what they did, So I said, you know what? I think what would be very helpful here is to get them a plaque up on the Bop Wall of Honor.
I agree. The wall, recognition.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you recall, Ro, which I think is probably the time to resurrect this symbol, was the Bop Seal of Approval. And so that is something that I think is, as it was back then, was a way of identifying growth of this whole Bop initiative, as it was called.
Okay.
And it did not just include persons who were a part of our inner circle. It was consistent with the idea of supporting the economic development worthy of our support.
Yeah.
And they had the Bop Seal of
Right.
Approval.
And worthy of the community's support.
There was something inside
the new Bop Seal of Approval, I believe, is what we've developed now with the banner of the New Life Movement Ministries. We have a bunch of logos that are constantly coming in underneath it, and those are the people a part of the organization. One of the Kwanzaa coming with the Chatham Neighborhood Initiative. I hope I didn't put out there. We have a social event for New Year's Eve. Is the BlackNificent in Gold New Year's Eve Soiree, and that is a social just to come out and enjoy us. We have Black-owned entrepreneurs servicing the different needs, because there's another history lesson there. Is back before the what I remember, and that was that hope, that symbol, that wow, we're going to be free. So for those that want to still honor that tradition, we're asking That event is going to help fund a lot of BOP initiatives, Black Partners that we have coming. We have Chantel Grant, I don't know what's the name of their organization, with adult beverages that will be, we have Art of Life Unlimited Photography. Shout out to Brandon Fells, who will be here. Entrepreneurs, you know, where your dollars, that's where it's going to pay them and to fund the initiatives that we have. So we have that event on Eventbrite. It is under Eventbrite. Those are just some of the holiday announcements. So Black Coffee Political Alliance will have their formal fundraiser dinner February that we'll be doing under the leadership of Dr. Margaret King, PhD of Out, Nigeria style. June 2019, we want to collaborate with everybody for Juneteenth activities on the Black Mile, hopefully, along with the Webb Evan Day Parade that month as well. August 2019 is the Black Taste of Chicago under the leadership of Mr. Torrey Muhammad and Sister Linda Perez of Timbo Fly, Bean Soup Times, and the Chicago's Women's Empowerment Group. They are on the Black Mile, 7900 South Drexel. I saw one of their advertisements for tax season is coming, so check them out. And then November will be the 3-year anniversary for the Bop Biz Center. So we want to put that buzz out there now, and you'll hear more details about it as the year comes in. And all right, so we're going to move on to the first segment, which is post-election day essentials. And we'll have Dr. Murphy, our political expert, to go over some of the meaning behind the results of the election, just for some people so that we can keep everybody engaged and not go away into hiding now that the governor's race is over and the other state officials have been elected in.
Well, the governor's race may be over, but our race is not over. Our race has just started.
Right, I think that's important.
Yes, absolutely.
That's important.
Absolutely. And let me say why that is important. I was pleased with the outcome as much as I thought that Rauner made a critical political mistake in his 4 years, and that was his refusal to compromise with the Democrats. He obviously had to realize that there was no way he could defeat them since they control both houses of the Illinois General Assembly. And so why would you keep submitting a budget that you know is not going to pass, and why would you submit a budget as governor that you know ain't going to pass, then veto a budget that the Democrats pass when you know they have the power to override it? So you were just simply, I thought, wasting a lot of time. And I thought Harold Washington proved the art of the compromise, because he was in the same position in his first term. He could not defeat the Devoli Act 29. He only had 21 votes in the Chicago City Council, and Bedoliak had 29. So anything that Washington would propose in terms of a budget, the Bedoliaks could defeat. Anything Bedoliak would propose as a budget, they could pass. And Washington could veto it. But it didn't matter, because, it did matter, because Bedoliak and them did not have enough votes to override the veto. So nobody got nothing. Oh, that is.
I want you to speak to the camera.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just a guy that never been on TV before.
He's lying.
Yeah. So and that was a thing that Washington and Bedoliak, from a political standpoint, was wise in doing. They sat down and they agreed, how do we compromise? What is it you want? What do we want? Let's work together. And they did, until such time as Harold won the control of the city council, and then he no longer had to compromise. He was the master. And so in Rauner's case, I thought that was a foolish mistake that he made politically, and it really hurt the state as a result of his unwillingness to compromise. Now that the Democrats have prevailed, and they now have the power to pass anything they want in the Illinois General Assembly, now our work really begins. Because one of the problems that we have is that our community is too vested in the Democratic political position. And now that they have all the power, now we must make demands, since we came out in huge numbers to reinforce that power, which they had all the time, but now they have it in the executive branch. They have all three branches of government solidified. But look what has happened in previous years. It's been the same way before, when you had Democratic governors under Mike Madigan controlled General Assembly, and then they fight. You know, the governor's the executive, but what you really have to understand, Mr. Executive, Pritzker, if you can't get along with Mike Madigan, your executive power is meaningless, because he'll stop anything you try to do. Now, we as voters in Illinois should weigh in on this position, and because, and now that we have the Democrats in and we put all our capital in there, now is the time for us to go to Springfield and make demands in exchange for the capital that we just invested in them.
Right. So that's a great strategy as far as that, what to do with the administration that we have that would be, I guess they're sworn in January. I should know this.
But the critical issue is this. Remember, we talk about this all the time. We only organize politically to advance our interests.
Yes.
And the critical dilemma that we have been in at every level in the Democratic Party is that those who we elect to office are first Democrats. That is something you and I should be concerned about.
Yeah.
When they should first represent the agenda of their constituency, period. Because see, that's not a partisan issue.
Yes.
That is carrying out the demands of those who put you in office.
Yeah.
And so now we have to, as an informed constituency, be clear on what our interests are now. We must be clear on that. Now, there's a lot of things, and we would invite you out because we're going to be conducting caucuses where we in the Black Coffee Political Alliance can really establish clearly what our agenda is and why. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples just for you to think about. I don't know how any of us could deny the fact that the failure to reform our criminal justice system is killing us. I give Tony Preckwinkle a lot of credit for having removed the bail requirement for nonviolent offenders to get out of jail on senseless charges, because it had filled the jails up to a maximum capacity. And now I understand through that bail initiative, the county jail population is half what it used to be. Wow. That means we have far less of our brothers and sisters in that county jail being pressured to plead guilty to a minor offense just so they can be free. That make all the sense in the world. If you're 18, 19, 20, or 30 years old, you sitting in that jail, you got a $200 bond for a theft, and then the state's attorney comes in there and negotiates with you a guilty plea in exchange for your release today.
You're gonna say you're gonna sign.
Well, hey, you know you're guilty anyway. How you do is being truthful. You're a reformed Christian.
Right.
So that's a big issue, but not to make light of it. This issue is paramount for us on a national scale. Criminal justice reform, the end to mass incarceration. What I get just thoroughly frustrated by when I think about all the men and women who have had their freedom taken from them for the mere possession of marijuana, and even harder drugs, the mere possession for your personal use, and you end up getting your life destroyed, able to go to these states now and get a license to grow and to distribute medical and soon recreational marijuana is going to be here in Illinois.
Well, you know what? One of the states that just legalized it was Massachusetts. So now we have 6 states in the U.S. where marijuana is legal.
And it looks like they're going to pressure.
Yeah, 20-some states with legal marijuana. Most of it's medical.
So you're talking
about the 6 where they're using it for recreational.
Okay,
not the medicinal ones, because even in the medicinal one, that one is altered a bit. It's not the same, as far
They're
as
still using it for recreation.
Most of us using marijuana 50 years ago was doing it for medicinal reasons.
Well, you got a little arthritis, right? You got a little defect, right?
Remember that cannabis has psychic properties.
Of course, for relaxation.
It is considered a sedative hypnotic.
Yeah.
Now, when you get hypnotized Doc, you know.
Well, I think
Yeah.
we all.
So one of the things that I see that's about to happen, that's one of the things that Pritzker is pushing, is to legalize marijuana for recreational use in Illinois. How will that affect? I saw that in some of the other places that marijuana is legal, that they've gone to reverse the criminal charges for people who were arrested
Yeah.
for, right,
That's
convicted.
something we should push.
That's something we
The
need
other,
to
the other
definitely
thing I
push.
think we should definitely push, and let's not be sleep on this, we want our fair share of these licenses.
Now
And
that's
There it
a
is.
back off
There it is.
issue.
That's
Yeah,
it.
How do we make those
We
things?
want to
yeah.
make certain we have one of those licenses to produce it and to dispense it,
Yes.
you know?
Well, you know,
And I see it, bro, everybody who's locked up in jail on some silly cannabis possession charge
Oh, you-
should be released tomorrow.
Well,
Absolutely.
You know, well, that's true too. But you know, even in a lot of the conversations that you've had with us, Dr. Murphy, about after the slaves were free and then the Jim Crow era, I'm sorry, and you talked about the black codes,
Yeah.
things that were just, that was designed to target us because we were bootless. We didn't have money, we didn't have the education, you know, having, especially when it came to voting, making them have to take literacy exams, knowing that we weren't educated in this country to begin with, to be able to vote. So when they have those type of things like the black codes, you're arrested because you don't have a full dollar in your pocket, you know, and then now you're back in slavery, or you know, and this is a continuation of it. I think maybe more even modern day of the same stuff, you know, that they were doing before.
No question, Doc. You're right on target, you know. See, it doesn't really matter what mechanism you use to legally exploit a group of their labor and their freedom.
Yes.
So we don't need to debate over that. To this day, we often attribute, and just to bring it home, we often think of the horrendous violence in Chicago as a function of gangs and drugs. That's the platform that they launched the argument that if there was just, these folks would just stop using drugs, do this, things would be so much better. When violence in the city of Chicago, when you look at the neighborhoods in which it is entrenched, it is more a function of the poverty and desperation. It's not the guns. If you group all of us right here in this neighborhood, and we have no jobs, no money, no ability to feed ourselves, but half of us is armed.
We got guns.
Let's be
happen to
real
people?
about this.
I mean, and then
that's a hell of a point.
Yeah.
but let's just add a medical component to this.
And all of these guys is armed now.
You know, and let's add a medical component to this, you know, as far as, you know, we have no money, no food, definitely a food desert, no nutrition, nothing that's going in to balance out all of these hormones that are imbalanced in our mind and the central nervous system, and we're going crazy, literally, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. We're in this group, you know, we don't have the nutrition that we need. We're eating all these processed foods. We don't even have the access to the type of foods and things. And even if we did, the prices are so inflated that you're gonna go and eat the stressed meat. You're gonna go and eat the meat that they just cut the cancer out of and then they sold the rest. You're gonna do what you have to do because you have to eat. And it goes to play just from what happened yesterday. And it was near my house, so it hit very close to home, the Mercy Hospital massacre over there. With the gentleman having an argument with his ex-fiance in the parking lot and murdered her and went into the hospital and had done something heinous and horrific in the parking lot and still made the conscious decision to enter into what we think of as a safe haven, a place where people go for healing. That's the last place that you're gonna think is going to be riddled with bullets. You know, you're going for help. Could you imagine that person being rushed in for a heart attack yesterday and couldn't get in? Couldn't, because this man just couldn't handle his emotions behind a breakup or whatever they were arguing about in the parking lot, and took that woman's life and went in there shooting. you know, I listened to the news to some of the people, and I want to just do a quick correction. You know, certainly prayers to the families, to those people who lost their lives. You know, and it hurts because Chicago lost people of service to the community. You know, they didn't. The news said they lost one doctor, but I'll correct them. They lost 2 doctors yesterday, because that pharmacy resident was still a doctor of pharmacy. She was just a different kind. And, you know, it's almost like a sister lost, you know, when I heard that. And then to know that the pharmacy department, you know, was under attack in, you know, because he was jiggling the door, trying to get in there, and they're back there. And it just took me back. I'm a pharmacist. I remember all of those protocols and things that we had to do in case someone robs you. And on a retail front, it's much more dangerous if you're just in a, you know, a store that's on the corner. But inside of the hospital, you just
right. Those are areas.
That's where you just feel, you know. And I remember applying for the residency there last year, and I just kept thinking, like, you know, I just couldn't stop shaking at the thought of that, you know, it happening there, where you're thinking it shouldn't happen there, right. You know.
Well, even in a wartime situation, you know, I think it's under the Geneva Convention, you know, hospitals and places where medical treatment is being administered, it's off limits to bomb. That's a part of the Geneva Convention. You know, so as soldiers, you know, in the Army, we're taught to avoid those as targets. So just the very idea that yesterday, those people were a target in an area that has been quarantined, even in the most heinous wars. You know, it didn't protect those people yesterday. So that's very shocking.
Yeah. You know? So, you know, it certainly hit close to home in many ways, and not just because I live a few blocks away, but, you know, in other ways, just being there and having worked there before, doing rotations from school there, and just knowing what they were doing. I knew what they were doing there, and then all of a sudden, that woman just got off the elevator, and boom, her life is over. She was probably just doing rounds, and, you know, and that's it.
Just got off the elevator.
The pharmacist that was murdered. That, you know, so
just jumped off, walked off the elevator, bam,
you know, and got struck, you know, and fatally, and, you know, and then the officer, you know, certainly as Black people, we do have a interesting relationship with law enforcement, but still there are some that go in to serve and protect, and they truly are. And certainly that guy, he had just gotten off probation and got into becoming a full-fledged officer.
It wasn't even a month, I believe.
Yeah, and he had, I believe, that heart and spirit to serve and protect, you know, and we lost him, and certainly his family, so it's
I would like to think that that is generally true for most public servants who work.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we overgeneralize, so one of the few that might deviate from that.
Yeah.
And so
I would tend to agree. I don't think that we can criminalize all police officers for the errant behavior of a few.
Right.
You know, it's something that, and then there's a climate, you know, not to get off on a tangent, but there's a climate that I think, you know, kind of induces fear amongst police officers. You know, especially in our community. We're in an economic desert. Like you said, you got folks who are hungry and they armed with weaponry. So as a police officer, you know, they aren't certainly, you know, welcomed in that environment. So I can understand why.
Well, I can't blame them for having a healthy sense of apprehension when they're working in certain neighborhoods. It's the same apprehension I have, and I live in the neighborhood. You know? So I can understand that. You know, you know, your own fears and concerns for your personal safety, to cause you to operate in a way that your presence now bring a higher risk of harm to innocent citizens from you because of your fears.
Yeah. In other words, you know, if you're too scared,
then you go work for the post office.
That's right. Right.
Or the fire department.
Right.
Well, I mean, they could be equally scared too going into those fires, you know, so.
Yeah.
I guess, another one of the things in the news that I heard of today in the state of Ohio, they have an anti-abortion law that is to be voted on. They're not going to do it now. I believe it's probably going to be toward the beginning of next year. So we certainly want to encourage voters, not just black voters, not just women voters, but anybody that have a heart and a consciousness, for choice. Because they're saying this is about pro-life, but to me it sounds like anti-choice. They're saying in this anti-abortion law, that it will be against the law where you can either serve life in prison or face the death penalty if you were to get an abortion. And it does not abstain from other circumstances of rape, incest, or if that pregnancy is threatening to your own life. And they are threatening to not only send you to jail or possibly kill you for it, or the threat of killing you. Well, not the threat. They're putting a threat out there to instill the fear, but they're very serious about it. Not just you, but the doctor that either performs it or for whatever reason it is to help you. So that's one of the things that they need people to get out there and vote. Residents of Ohio, get out there and vote, because they're telling you that we are going to take that option away from you. And
well, let me just say, and I can really appreciate the concern. That's been a major issue on the conservative side. And what we expect, and one of the reasons that the fight by the Trump administration to confirm Brett Kavanaugh was that Trump's belief that he would be the deciding vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. Right now, anybody in America has the right to make their own choice. That's what Roe versus Wade gave the American people in 1973.
Was that concerning birth control? And
Abortion.
Oh.
A woman's right to an abortion. Prior to Roe versus Wade, abortions were illegal and they occurred in the back alleys. And there was a move to give a woman the right to terminate a pregnancy as a decision between her and her doctor. That was the argument for Roe versus Wade in 1973. That was 27 years ago. We're now 2018. 45 years, Roe versus Wade has been the law. But the appointment of Kavanaugh, whose judicial writings was in favor of overturning Roe versus Wade, and there's a 5-4 conservative majority on the Supreme Court. And so we don't know how it's going, but the pendulum is swinging in favor of Roe versus Wade being overturned. Now, the legal question at hand, if Roe versus Wade is overturned, how will the Supreme Court rule? Do they kick it back to the states to decide individually? Or will it then become federal law, where states would have no option as to grant it or not?
See, one of the things that I think is important for us to begin to understand, we looked at those hearings, and, oftentimes, the appointment of individuals into positions of power, it's difficult for us to see the relationship of their appointment to a tangible outcome, like something like abortion.
We don't understand.
We don't understand the full implications of that. We got caught in the whole issue around Kavanaugh and why it was important, but we lost the gravity of what his presence represents. And that's something that I think that we have to become very conscious of. And that's one of the reasons why black coffee is so important.
That is major, man. That is absolutely major. And and partly that those kind of things like a Supreme Court nomination, you have to, and it is so telling when you look at it, because as I watched it, the Kavanaugh was actually the last person placed on the potential nomination list for Trump, the last one. So how did he get pushed to the front when Trump read his judicial opinions about the fact that a sitting president should be immune from investigation,
I guess
he
that
wrote
would
about
do
what he
it.
wrote
That would
about
do it.
expanding executive power.
Yeah.
Trump said, move him to the front of the line.
Yeah.
Right.
Move him to the front of the line.
Yeah, so that's what they're hoping. They're hoping.
Now watch this here. Now watch this. I don't know how much of it you watch, but they went this. Everything was going smooth for Kavanaugh. Then all of a sudden, a lady by the name of Professor Blasey Ford, college professor, came forward to testify that when she was 15 years old in high school, at a high school party, Brett Kavanaugh and his buddy Judge something,
All judges.
that Kavanaugh actually sexually assaulted her at this party, and that he was obviously drunk, but his college records show him and Brother Judge, they was drunk all the time. And Judge even wrote a book about his drunkenness. So it goes on, and this lady comes before the American people and testified at the before the Judiciary Committee of the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation. And her testimony was compelling. I mean, compelling. So the Democrats now, I mean the Republicans now, are in a hard situation. If you could see that testimony given by this lady came across like the Virgin Mary. Impeccable background credentials.
Okay.
Then they launched the FBI to look into it, and they come back and they say, well, this was the rationale for the Republicans. Well, a person should be considered innocent
Till proven
until
guilty.
proven guilty. And after listening to the compelling testimony of Dr. Blasey Ford, I mean, it's compelling. I believe she was sexually assaulted as she testified. I just don't know that it was
Kavanaugh.
Brett Kavanaugh,
Oh, okay.
who did it.
You don't believe it?
No, that's just what the Judiciary Committee.
Oh,
okay.
They said she believed that
They-
she's clear that she was sexually assaulted.
Right.
But
it
they
wasn't him.
blame her for maybe not remembering correctly. Not Brett Kavanaugh, the weakest crack you ever wanted to see. And so watch this. Then they invoke the false standard.
Okay.
The Republican kept saying, well, a person should be considered innocent until proven guilty. I agree with that, but that's a criminal standard. We was not in a criminal proceeding. Kavanaugh hadn't been charged with doing nothing.
Okay.
He was in effect conducting himself in an interview before
Right, for a job.
For a job.
Oh, okay.
So the standard is not, is he guilty to proven innocent? The question is, given the testimony we've heard, do you have any doubt about Kavanaugh's innocence?
Right, right.
Not his guilt. Any
Especially
doubt
for
about-
something like the Supreme Court. I think that that's
the
absolutely
the
ridiculous.
highest court in the land.
Well, see, that's the thing. And, you know, it's my opinion that they are trying, they know that this is an outrageous bill. And I forgot the name of it. I'll post it on Black Coffee Facebook page after the broadcast. But I believe
the
what
only way
they'll
that
be.
bill, only bill, I don't know what they call it, but that's a state that's anticipating that Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned.
Right, they
But that's
want
the
that,
only
they
way.
want it to go, that's what I'm getting to, is that I think they know it's
I
gonna be
see,
challenged,
yeah.
and that it could be challenged in a lot of red states or even in blue states. So it can go to the Supreme Court, and now that the Supreme Court has become more conservative, that some things can be reversed
Oh, yeah,
or turned,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I think that's a plot, and I think it should be pointed out that they know that that's outrageous, you know, and they know that people may show up and vote against it, and then they want to be able to have it challenged, so it can go be appealed and go all the way up to the Supreme Court.
I have a sneaky suspicion though, even though they got a 5-4 majority. John Roberts, the Chief Justice, I don't think he's going to. Because listen, women are now a majority of the electorate. The Me Too movement is politically powerful. And so, when this thing comes out, there can be no movement until the Supreme Court weighs in on Roe versus Wade.
Right,
Because
right.
Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. And can't no state make no law contrary to that. But if you can overturn Roe versus Wade, then the next question is, how will the Supreme Court mandate that law? Some say the Supreme Court could push the decision back to the states to decide their own positions. If that's true, then we would see red states having anti-abortion laws, which only means that a mother in an anti-abortion state would move to the state that permits it. Now, since that would just nullify it, then the push may be to make the Supreme Court make it the law of the land.
Right.
And not push it back to the
Well,
states.
I think that women should have a choice. You know, I really do. I think, I understand, I think
That's
there's
why it's just not a woman's decision.
Yeah.
It's as much a male decision. Do you believe that a woman, your wife, should have the right to make reproductive decisions, have a final say in reproductive decisions?
I think that it's an issue for white people because they're in a declining birth rate.
Well, I think that's the reason why they're trying to force it. You know, they're sterilizing us while they're trying to force them, and they're saying they don't care if it's your brother that raped you, you having that baby. Because we need our numbers to go up.
That's
and my
right.
thing is you would really put out there retarded kids just for the sake of just
Oh, I'm
having
not
more.
laughing every time.
I'm sorry, well, we don't have to be politically correct here. This is
Right.
This is black coffee.
Right. And I do want to give a shout out and bring her name out to the surface here because it seems that, you know, the other women, the white women, have really taken the Me Too movement. The founder and creator of the Me Too movement, black woman, Tarana Burke. So I want to put her name out there because she's being forgotten as the one who started it, and it's like they've taken the movement and ran with it, and they've left the black women out of it. So that's something else we're taking back. We're going to be reclaiming a lot of things back in this world. So when Dr. Murphy mentioned the Me Too movement, I just wanted to put her name out there, Tarana Burke, as the founder of the Me Too movement.
I thought that the recent news, you know, I don't know which actress it was. Alyssa Milano, who suggested that she would not participate unless the movement repudiated Louis Farrakhan. So I don't know whatever happened. What happened with that?
You know, I actually never looked more into it.
I pray she didn't do it.
Well, they can get somebody else to speak. I mean, it's not that serious. If she, you know, she's a, you know, no one's looking at Alyssa Milano anymore. Her time.
I didn't even know what she ever did in the first place.
You know, and I've seen her in a few things. I used to watch Charmed. She was leading actresses in Charmed.
Were you Charmed?
Ha. But I don't think that they went with her. I think I never finished. I looked at the article and I go, it just wasn't worth the time to look into that more because of a person's opinion of Louis Farrakhan when the media is constantly twisting his words and, you know, changing the rhetoric just to make him appear to be, you know, this person that he's not. When he's just
anybody that's pro us,
you know,
is anti them, or they are anti anybody that's pro us.
Right.
Because I don't see the man that they talk about when they talk about Louis Farrakhan.
I don't either. They just don't like, you know, we've been demonized for so long in this country. And, you know, the media is worse. That's why black media is so important to get the images, the positive images of black people out there. You know, the black man has been criminalized. You know, the black woman has been over-sexualized. You know, so it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much. And so we want our own narratives now. We want to be able to tell our own stories. And hopefully they have somebody else to speak. There's plenty of people they got Oprah. There's plenty of people, Shonda Rhimes. There's plenty of people that can speak that is of influence and probably more influence than Alyssa Milano. That can speak as.
I never heard of her until that time.
So those are just some of the things that are in the news. We're gonna go to the next segment, the things that make you go Coon. Okay, we like to have that segment every wake up hour to talk about things that a candid conversation with Black people to understand why do we get sold out? You know, what makes that person cross over and decide, hey, I'm gonna denounce being Black, or did I have any melanin or anything, you know? So here's things that make you go coon. So I wanted to talk about things that make you go coon. Girl, this is Dr. Murphy's first time in our segment. We've done this a couple times in the wake up hour. This is our, you know, our segment, things that make you go coon. We talk about, and Ro likes to tease me a lot.
DSM-4 is about to have a statistical diagnosis for that. And that might be a good name for it. What makes you go coon? But they'll probably come up with something funny.
Oh, the DSM-4 guy.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it is one of the things that I think make Black people go coon. First of all, when you're working for somebody that don't look like you. I just recently had the opportunity of speaking to some banks. As you guys may or may not know, we're working to find funding for the BlackNificent Mile. And part of our funding is coming from the city's retail Thrive Zone money. The challenge with the money is that it's a reimbursable grant. So you have to have 100% of what it costs, and then the city's going to reimburse us up to 75%. Well, that's the problem. Hell, if I had 75% up front, I may not need any of the city's money, right? So there are banking relationships that are out there that say that they will be the bridge capital for those entities that need the funding. The problem is the same lending requirements are available that keep us from borrowing money in the first place, stand in the balance of our ability to get the bridge loan. And the things that they claim that are sensitive are not really sensitive. And so, you know, today I had the pleasure of speaking to a couple of bankers, and they were Black. And so they were talking about the funding and that they had relaxed guidelines. And to me, you know, how do you think that you're going to lend to our community and continue those same rigid guidelines and say that it's targeted at African Americans? But more importantly, how do the African Americans that they put out front, how do they get them to be willing to do something that they know is absolutely ridiculous? But I know it's because they're being paid. And those African Americans want to keep their jobs, so they're sitting in them damn meetings and they're not speaking up, because they're afraid to be too Black and too strong. So one of the things that I think makes us become coons is our desire to fit in and to not become or appear to be too radical.
Our desire to stay in.
That's right.
Our desire to stay in.
Employable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they need to start speaking up for us. Because surely nobody Black was in the room when y'all came up with those guidelines.
Absolutely. It's just there's so much sensitivity that needs to be shown to Black people, Black entrepreneurs, Black business people, because it's not like we inherently came from wealth or money or anything of that sort. So there's going to be some challenges for us.
Right.
There's guidelines. There shouldn't be these special clauses that says this or that, and you're like, man, I don't even meet that. So you're disqualified. Your application is thrown out, you know, immediately.
Right.
So how do you get started?
Right. If we're going to invest in the Black community, we need to invest in the Black community. Certainly, we have to participate in our own rescue. So definitely there has to be considerations on our end to raise the vibration of our credentials. But there's going to take some individuals that will invest in our community without expecting a whole lot from return. It's happening in other communities, and other people are getting access to capital who are not even damn qualified.
You know, bro, I just want to put this out there. And I know where you're coming from when you're talking about upgrades.
Speaking of.
I know what you're, man, I ain't never before been told I am talking too low.
Yeah. Well, when you're making a point, you get real low.
All right, let me say this. about the credentials. And I do understand where you're coming from, because that's a measure by which we determine whether we're going to get in the game or out of the game. But what is really interesting to me, if you understand our history, we didn't need no credentials or general contract licenses when we built the White House.
Say that.
We didn't need no general contracting licenses.
No.
They didn't ask us about our certificates of insurance.
Yes.
You know, what those white folks know was that these slaves can build this house better than anybody around.
Mm-hmm.
And when the so-called symbol of freedom, the Statue of Liberty, send me your poor, your hungry and huddled masses, those yearning to breathe free. Those were slaves that put the Statue of Liberty in place. Those weren't free men.
Oh, and Lady Liberty is black. It was a gift from the French.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there's a black woman up there. So I, just wanted to point that out.
The white folks here couldn't think that they shit that over the back.
No, they try to rewrite history, whitewash history like they always do. It was actually a gift for the French.
Right, and it was a very positive gesture because
Yeah.
the U.S. was the last nation to abolish slavery.
Yeah.
And the French said, well, man, it's about damn time. Every country in Europe had already long abolished slavery. You know? And
They brought it over piece by piece. It was the color of a penny, copper, and had it, built up. It had the the chains and the things, just like, with this scripture that he has there. But yeah, it's about the poor and just, and those who need, just like that caravan that's headed our way that they're trying to send the military in for, people who are seeking refuge, and that's what Lady Liberty symbolizes to begin with.
I think it's just crazy that Trump would authorize the military to shoot at people that got rocks in their hand.
But
who said that they was even throwing rocks?
Exactly.
The biggest lie in the world. Them people, those migrants, is 1,000 miles away. And then here's the big piece, here's the piece of missing history that's critical for us to understand. We need to go back to the beginning. When Cortez came into the area we now call Mexico, although it wasn't Mexico then, it was South America. The civilization of the Aztecs under Montezuma. And Cortez, with his flotilla of ships, because, and this is really key here, because Montezuma had this weird spirituality that had predicted one day strangers would come to his land, and it would be by God's providence that they came. He never put up any resistance. He just simply surrendered. That's a very significant piece of history to read. Now, just like in Africa, the same is true in North America, South and Central America. These lands were inhabited by indigenous people whose cultures, norms, and morals had been established for thousands of years. But since the invaders came with one motive, because they came from where? Europe. What was unique about Europe at that time? It was a barren, desperate, impoverished region of the world. And as they come out of Europe after discovering that the world was round, and all of the European countries sent their explorers. If you recall from your world history, Marco Polo walked to China. Because Italy, if you look at it, is in close proximity to China. He walked there to be who? Genghis Khan. And what did he want? At the time, because of their proximity to China, Italy had all the spices and stuff, which gave them great advantage over other European countries,
So they wanted to do trade.
Absolutely, trade, man, trade. And it was when he met with Genghis Khan that he discovered gunpowder. But the Chinese used gunpowder for ceremonial purposes. The European figured out that you could turn it into a weapon.
Interesting that their mind is always on a weapon.
Well, look, now think about it, though. Think about it. You really are coming out in a peaceful world.
Yes.
I mean, go back and read the history book. Nations that differed didn't war with, all war were called internecine. In other words, Africans fought with Africans, the Asians fought with Asians, and so forth and so on. Wasn't no Asians going nowhere to invade another people. No Africans was going nowhere to invade another people.
Right.
So when you look at all the races of the world, you find that there's one that has not only engaged in centuries of internecine war, I mean fighting among yourself, but done made war with everybody else.
Yeah.
And so, when we look at Central America today, you go in, what is the first thing that they do when they come in? The first thing they do is they must disrupt your culture. Because your culture establishes your norms and your mores. That's what keeps a people together. Now, how do you disrupt the culture? You bring the cross. As soon as the indigenous people in South America was converted to Christians, that was the end of their culture.
The end of their culture.
And now you see the average Hispanic person, they claim Catholicism as their religion.
And
that is not their indigenous religion. And you go in there now and you got this tall white man, Jesus Christ, on the mountain.
Talk about in Rio.
In Rio and anywhere else, he conquered. You ain't gonna find no place he done conquered and the cross is missing.
It's a part of the conquering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's actually a sword. So now what we have is you have the migrants that are escaping persecution and seeking political asylum.
Yes.
What are they running from? They're running from the dismantling disruption of their culture, where we have imposed a dictator over their land, and we make sure that that dictator has all the military arms and money and power that he needs to maintain control. As a result, the masses of people become displaced. Gangs are allowed to flourish within the culture, and ordinary people trying to raise families find it too unsafe to do so. So what do? They flee. They flee from persecution, violence, and death.
Wow. I figured, the people in Ohio, they're going to have to do the same thing.
Look, see, what we really have to kind of open up. Let's take Cuba. All the Cubans here in America. I was damn near grown before I realized that Cuba is a black country. The lighter skinned Cubans, like Castro and his family, although they were real Cubans, they knew the Cuban history, was under the dictatorial rule of a man by the name of Batista. Who was he? He was a dictator. Where did he come from? The United States of America, through military force, put him in power over the Cuban people.
They certainly demonized Fidel Castro.
And then these here. The rest of the world see Castro as a literal god. Because the Cuban people was illiterate. The caste system distinguished light Cubans from darker skinned Cubans. And when Castro, a lighter skinned Cuban, joined with Fidel Castro and launched the Cuban Revolution, overthrew Fulgencio Batista, overthrew him. What did the lighter skinned Cubans do? They got on boats because Americans said, look, if y'all can get to Florida, you good.
Okay.
So go down to Florida right now. Miami. That's Cuban land.
For the people who...
And guess what? That same law is in place. Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, those are descendants of the lighter skinned Cubans. Havana, Cuba used to be called the Las Vegas of the Caribbean.
Wow.
Where white men could go to Havana. That was real for white men.
Wow.
you would be able to have your way with the most beautiful Cuban women in the cabarets on the islands. While the indigenous Cubans were the kitchen hands, the field slaves. Only the lighter skinned Cubans could go to school and get an education. If you was of a darker hue, you was going out in the banana plantation.
Oh wow, so that's between that difference between the house nigga and the
It's the same
same
wherever
concept
you
wherever
go.
you go. Wow.
Where you go.
Yes. Well, this
And
is
so now you're looking at South and Central America. And what you see there is that the imposition of American foreign policy in those countries have created the conditions that these people are fleeing from.
wow.
And Trump want to sit there as if our hands is clean.
Right.
Oh, they do that all the time.
I
Everywhere
understand
you
they
go.
do.
do
But
it-
we need to understand.
the people.
Because I'm in the barber shop
But how do you
and I heard a
tell
coon say,
a
yeah,
coon?
man. Yeah, these Mexicans, this is invasion. You know, I'm sitting there getting that.
So they're believing that rhetoric, that hype.
Well, what else do you have to
Right.
to believe if you don't know the truth?
Yeah.
The first thing you hear, you think is the truth, because you ain't heard nothing else but what somebody just told you.
Wow.
Well, this has been an incredible
It
show.
certainly has. We're going to wrap things up. We want to thank
I'm gonna
Dr.
talk
Murphy.
much louder next time.
We want
But
to
I
thank
didn't know I was talking that low.
We want to thank Dr.
Can y'all
Murphy.
get me a microphone?
That's what we need.
We'll get a
There's
microphone
microphone.
for Dr. Murphy. We definitely will do that. So we want to thank you guys. I know the timing has been off the past couple of Tuesdays with a lot of things going on in this election season. We try to accommodate people, do our civic duties wherever we can. But next Tuesday, same place, same time, CP time. So you know it's gonna be 1-ish. By the time we start, we say 1 to 2, but it's usually 1-ish. And we apologize for that. We're gonna get better with that. I
We're gonna
promise.
get it right.
We're gonna get better with it. So I want to thank everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. We're Black Coffee Bop on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Black Coffee Bop.
All right.
All
Peace.
right. Well, this is good. It's good. It just,
And you know the damn answer. You know the damn answer to the plan of organized discrimination against black people.
What's that?
It's because black people don't have a common goddamn sense to know we need to take our money and put it in one goddamn financial institution that only loans money to black people.
Boy, crying his heart out.
I know. It's just,